My name's Nathan Garner. I'm the Technical Pre-Sales and Projects Manager here at Dynamic CCTV. And today we're going to be taking a look at the 𝐂𝐸𝐕 Intercom range, which I know has been quite popular with a lot of our customers and the installers that are fitting this type of equipment. A lot of questions that we do get asked a lot about is putting together the right system for the install. With so many different units that are available now, it can be difficult sometimes to put together what's needed for the customer to meet their requirements and also be able to fit within the actual capabilities of the devices. So we're going to be taking a look at that today. We will take a look at some of the units as well that I've got set up and added to my IVMS on this system. And then we'll come to the end and just have a bit of a Q&A session. But if you have any questions as we go along, if you put them in the Q&A section on Zoom, and at the end I'll go through those questions on there as well. So originally when the intercoms were first introduced, they were a fairly basic system with the original villa door stations and the larger multi-button keypad unit. Now 𝐂𝐸𝐕 have brought them down to be more modular, so you can actually customize them more to meet the requirements of a specific site with different modules that you can add on to your base camera module, and then each of the additional modules connect back into the main one. So the loop in and then the loop back out and into the next unit. So it may be that you only have a single button unit that you need to connect into your system, so a single call button with an indoor station. In that case, you could just use the single camera module, which is your base unit. Or if you have a large block of flats, you might want to have a keypad module, card readers, or even the screen display, so you can actually scroll through the different contacts that you've got added instead of having to put in a number or anything like that. So yeah, quite a few different options. And there's also the TwoWire range that are available as well, which is great for replacing now older systems that already have two-wire cable installed from legacy systems. You can swap those out with the 𝐂𝐸𝐕 two-wire range as well. So with the modular intercoms, you've got the indoor touchscreens for receiving calls. You can also receive calls through to the 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Central platform as well, and also through to the 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Connect app for mobiles. The way you can have it with the 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Connect app is if a call isn't answered on the indoor station within a predefined length of time, you can have it configured so it will then start calling the 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Connect app instead. Or you can have it call both simultaneously as well. Within the app and also on the touchscreens themselves, you do have the ability to actually unlock the doors and remotely unlock the doors through the 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Connect app. With the modular intercoms, you can actually connect two doors to a single intercom door station unit, and you can then select which door you want to unlock when the call actually comes through to the system. And of course, the units are two-way audio with video as well from the door stations, which will display on the intercom indoor station as well as through to the mobile 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Connect app, or through to a platform like 𝐂𝐸𝐸 Central or IVMS 4200 as well. And you can have the CCTV cameras, so if you have a 𝐂𝐸𝐕 CCTV system installed at the property as well, and you can also add those cameras into your indoor station to be able to view them on the touchscreens as well. So you can actually integrate both systems onto the one there. So the main requirements when people are looking for intercoms are the ability to actually extend the different functions that you're using. The main point is to actually be able to call the right person easily. On some of the legacy systems, it might be just different numbers that are displayed on the panel, whereas with the 𝐂𝐸𝐕 intercoms, you can actually display a person's name using the screens, or you can actually have the name tag modules as well within that. The benefit with the IP and two-wire intercom range is you also have the video feed as well, so you can actually see who's at the door within that, and it has a wide view angle as well, so you can see if there are other people in the vicinity, so you actually know who you're talking to when the call has come through. And you have the ability for that remote access through the mobile control on the Hit Connect app for the intercom system as well, so it's not just a local system at that property. If you connect the system to the internet and add it to a Hit Connect account, you'll then be able to remotely control that intercom system through the customer's mobile Hit Connect app on there. So this is an overview of some of the modular range. So you can see there's different units that we've got there. The main module, or your base module for your door station, is the camera module, and then you can add on the different modules to expand the system as you need to. So it may be that they want a reader as well as a keypad, which can be done. You can mix and match these modules to suit the needs of the actual site itself. And then we have a few different options when it comes to the actual indoor stations. There's also now the Android indoor station as well, which we're going to take a look at in a bit more depth a bit later on within this webinar. And there is also the master station as well. So for concierge desks, you could use the High Central platform as your concierge desk, or you could use the master station for you within that. So the main benefits of the newer second generation of intercoms over the older original ones is they do now work over standard PoE. The original intercoms that were released worked on a non-standard version of PoE, so you had to use the specific intercom PoE switches in order to be able to power the units. But now the second generation intercoms all run off standard PoE, so it makes it a lot easier when it comes to installing systems. You're not having to rely on specific PoE switches to power them. You could even run them on the same switches that you're using for your CCTV system that you're installing as well. It's now also a 2 megapixel 180-degree fisheye camera that is used in the door stations themselves, and these can be surface or flush mounted. On the actual indoor stations themselves, for smaller installs and for more basic setups, there is actually an on-screen setup wizard that you can go through to actually set up the intercoms. So for the smaller installs, you don't need to necessarily use a laptop for configuring the system itself. You can do it on screen using the on-screen menus for the intercoms as well, instead of using a laptop for them. So the main unit itself is the DS-KD8003-IME1, and this is the main door station unit. So for any of the intercom installs for IP, this would be your main unit that you would need, and then your extension modules would then connect to this. It's IP65 rated. You do have IR light for your nighttime image within these, and you can set it so it will actually capture pictures and save to an SD card that's fitted in the indoor station itself. And there's also the tamper switch on the back of the unit, which can be used as well on there, which you can just see there on our unit within that. So these are the different extension modules that can be used for the intercoms for the modular range. So you've got your indicator modules, so you can show whether or not calls coming through, the door's open, whether or not the mic's on. And then we've got the keypad modules. So this can be used for entering a key code to actually unlock the door. We do now have a special firmware for the door stations, so you can have 8 codes for door 1 and then another 8 codes for door 2 as well. So you can actually create separate codes to be able to unlock each door individually that's connected to your door station. We then have the blanking modules. This is if you want to fit a third-party card reader behind it for an access control system. You could do that with your blanking plate. We do have the specific card reader module as well, which integrates directly with the intercoms, the DS-KD-M unit, which works at 13.5 megahertz for your cards. And then we've also got the name tag module as well, which we do have the templates to be able to set up the right sizes and stuff for each of the name tags, so it looks nice and professional and clean when you're using them as well within those. So the main kind of highlights with the Hikvision Intercom IP range is the fisheye camera. So you've got that wide angle view from your door station, and it's 2 megapixel and does have wide dynamic range and night vision using the IRs that are built into the unit. You can also use it with the mobile app through HitConnect, and you can configure duress passwords, set up do not disturb on the units as well, so when your customer goes to bed, they can put the system in do not disturb, so the calls aren't coming through if someone presses the button during the night. You can also have elevator control as well. So if this is in a block of flats, you can actually use the indoor station to call the elevator from inside the flat itself within the system. It's easy to expand and add on to your door stations with the additional modules, or even adding on additional indoor stations. So it might be that there's multiple rooms in the property where you'd want to receive the calls through to, and you can actually set up station extensions to be able to have those calls go through to multiple indoor stations at the same time. And you can also integrate your CCTV system into the system, so you can actually display your live view from your CCTV cameras on the indoor station, and you can actually add the door stations to your DVRs and NVRs, so you can continuously record the camera that's built into the door station for continuous recording as well. So this is an overview of a typical kind of setup with the intercoms. So you've got your door station that's being powered by a PoE switch, and you've also got the mag locks that are wired into there. This is then connected into a switch which runs the backbone for the intercom system, and you then have your PoE switches with the indoor stations connected to them. And then for the actual control, we've got a IVMS 4200 workstation or a master station. Depending on the size of the system or how much control they need over the system, you might look at using Hike Central if they're needing to have multiple concierges or being able to manage the system from multiple different PCs or multiple users. You can also, with the Hike Central platform, is manage the system remotely, so you can actually log into a web front end of the Hike Central server and be able to manage the actual intercom system from there as well. The newer, more updated range brings in the ability to have stainless steel door stations. So these are more vandal resistant than the standard door stations currently available from ourselves. We do actually have these stainless steel units in stock now as well, and they can look more aesthetically pleasing than the standard intercom units do that are more plasticky. These are stainless steel and can look more upmarket on higher end installs, or where you just need a bit more vandal resistant than the standard units on there as well. And the same goes for the different modules. Those have been done in stainless steel as well, and also the different bracketry, so your surface mounts and your flush mounts as well have been done in stainless steel to match with the modules and the main camera module unit that's installed. So one of the more up-to-date indoor stations is the Android indoor station. This was released a couple of months ago here in the UK. So what this allows you to do is actually be able to tie in different Android apps. So you can actually integrate the AX Pro alarm system from Hikvision onto the Android indoor station. So you can arm and disarm your alarm system from the indoor station itself, and also control your intercom system from there. So this is based on Android to actually run the unit. It works similar to your standard indoor stations, which I've got a video which we can take a look at shortly, just so you can see the on-screen display and actually using the arming and disarming an AX Pro alarm system through the Android indoor station. You could also use other third-party home automation applications, or even actually install Spotify if you wanted to on the indoor station. You can actually do that, you downloading the APK file and uploading it via the IVMS 4200 software to the Android indoor station as well. So it gives your customers that more usability using that unit as well. Or you could even install the Connect app onto the system as well and be able to view your cameras through there from multiple remote sites. You can actually do that through the system. So I did mention originally that we've got the IP solution that we just ran through there, but there's also the TwoWire IP solution. And so this would run on existing TwoWire installations that are an existing system that now needs replacing with a more up-to-date intercom system. So this runs off 2-wire cable, and you would have a DS-KD60-2N power adapter, which is your 24 volt DC. And you have a 2-wire hub, which would be your video audio distributor, which would take in your connections for the door station and the different indoors off the 2-wire cable. And on that unit, you then have a network connection to be able to connect that to the router on site for Connect access or access via IVMS 4200. But what you can also do with that is mix and match. So you can actually tie in a 2-wire intercom system with an IP intercom system as well. So if you have some legacy cabling that's already installed where you can't replace it with Cat5, you can actually use the 2-wire intercoms that are running over that old 2-core cable still, and then the other part of the system that you're installing as new with new cabling, you can run that as a full IP system, and the two can work together. Both can be compatible with each other, so you're not having to replace out all the cabling on site. You can actually run them as a one system through there. So with the 2-wire intercoms, they do use the same modular design as the standard IP intercom range, but it has the added benefit of being able to use the existing cabling. So it's perfect for replacing legacy intercom installs. These do use a video audio distributor, so you can't use a standard PoE switch or anything like that to connect the system or power it up. You do need to use the specific video audio distributor with the specific power supply as well to power the distributor itself. It still has the features being able to call through to the Connect app on mobile. You can also have it call through to the IVMS 4200 software or the licensed Central DMS software as well. So it still has the same additional capabilities as the IP system, just running on the legacy installs with the older cabling in there. These are generally used for smaller scale intercom installs, but I have seen on some projects where we've had to stick with the 2-wire cabling that's already installed, where we have done it on larger installs as well on project systems. So this is a basic overview of a general 2-wire topology. So we've got our 𝐂𝐨𝐫𝐸706 units, which are taking the 2-wire cable from each of the indoor stations, which are then connected into each other and running the backbone on 2-wire as well, using the distributors. We then have a network connection going from the actual distributor itself into a switch, which then allows us to bring in our IP cameras, our connection to the VMS platforms, such as IVMS and Central. And we can also have the indoors connected to the Wi-Fi. So in blocks of flats, each flat may have its own internet access. You would be able to connect the indoor stations for that flat to the Wi-Fi for that flat, and then the calls can go through to that specific person on the Connect app within that as well. So there's the flexibility there to still be able to have all the features of an IP system just running over existing legacy cabling that's on site. So it saves on having to install all new cabling, or for those sites where it's an older building or something similar where you just can't replace the actual cabling for Cat5, and to be able to put in a full network intercom system on there. You can also tie in multiple buildings using the TwoWire system. So this is using multiple backbones using the TwoWire Intercom system, and then it's going back to a 𝐂𝐨𝐫𝐸706-S unit, which then links back up. So your -S's are your backbones for the actual system that allows you to connect these in together, and we can then network that again through IVMS or Central. With the TwoWire intercoms, it's a maximum of 500 devices in the system to be able to call through within these. So there is an upper limit on the amount of devices that you can actually have with a TwoWire intercom system on there. We still have all of the different add-on modules that are available for the TwoWire intercom. So as again with the IP modular intercoms, your main unit is the DS-KD8003-IME2, and the two main units for the TwoWire intercom system. And then we can connect in our different modules that we need for that specific site. So the card reader modules, name tag modules, anything like that we can put on there within these. So this is the actual audio distributor itself. So this is the DS-KAD706. So this is what you would actually use to connect in your indoor stations and your door stations. So you can see we've got 5 channels for our indoors, and then the last port, which is number 6, gives out up to 16 watts of power for our door station. So you can only actually power one door station per distributor, and the rest of the connections are for your indoor stations. We then have an in and an out for running our backbones to connect multiple units together, similar to the topology that we just looked at for the system itself. We then have a LAN connection, so this is to connect into a network. So this would allow us to then add in an IP intercom system if we wanted to, or just for our connection to the internet for the Connect side of things for the intercom system as well on there. When you're using the TwoWire system, you do need to use the distributor that we just looked at, and then you also need to use this specific power supply in order to be able to power that unit, to be able to give power to the different indoor stations and the door stations that will be running off those systems. So this is the DS-KAW60-2N, and this is the specific power supply that will be needed with that distributor in order to power the unit. And this is DIN rail mountable as well for your power supply, so you can DIN rail mount them if you're using multiple distributors, and then run your power cables from the power supply into your distributor for those. So the main highlights with the TwoWire intercom is pretty much the same as the IP modular intercom, so you're not really losing any functions necessarily between the TwoWire and the IP intercoms. IP can obviously be powered by PoE switches, standard PoE, so it can make it an easier install, especially when you have CCTV installed with PoE switches. You can run them on the same PoE switches as your CCTV for your intercoms. You can still have public passwords, duress passwords, leaving a message that's recorded to the SD cards that are installed in the indoor stations themselves. What we will take a look at is the actual two-wire cabling distances. So these can be lower than your PoE distances that you can get on the IP side of things. I will send these slides out at the end of the webinar, so you've got this comparison table between the different cables that you can use for TwoWire and the distances that you can achieve. Depending on the AWG rating of the cable, as well as the cross-sectional diameter of the cores, can actually affect the distance that you can achieve either for the indoor stations or the outdoor stations. So it is important to take that into consideration when looking at the cable runs that you're actually using with TwoWire, to take that into account within that. So what we'll do now, that's the end of the kind of theory slides, is we'll take a look at the actual Intercom Designer tool, which is available on the Hikvision UK website, which I'll also send a link to in the email after this webinar. So we have a few different tools that are available on here and we're just going to take a look at the Intercom Designer tool. So this allows you to put together your intercom for your different sites. So it may be home using in a villa or apartments or even a commercial building within that. So for this example, we're just going to take an apartment building, and then we're going to go for an IP solution. We could select TwoWire. For this one, we're just going to look at the IP solution, and then we're going for the modular intercoms on here as well. We do now have the villa intercoms that are available, which can go up to a 4-button door station that have inbuilt card readers for your smaller installs as well on the IP solution. So if we select modular for now, we can click on next. So now we can add in our different units. So obviously we've got our main module, which is our camera module. We can add in one of these screens for the system if we wanted to, and we then need to select our mounting types along the top. So whether or not we're using a three-way surface mount, for example, any rain shields, stuff like that, we can actually select between them, or even the flush mounting units within the intercoms. And we can add on another module if we wanted to, such as the keypad. So you can see it's building up that system, and you can add on multiple modules in there as well. So you can actually have 8 modules added to one main camera module on there. So if we click on next, we can then select the amount of indoor stations that we want for the actual system itself. So for this one, if we just put 5 of the indoors on here, click next again, we can add in our different accessories. So if we want a PoE switch, different locks, the cards within the system as well. Click on next again after we've added in our switch. It gives us a breakdown of the kit that we've put together for our intercom system as a design solution, and we can then click on export list, click on OK, and it will then export that design as a PDF, which you can then give to your customer as a solution that you're looking at doing, or you can email this over to our sales team for our sales team to be able to put a quote together for the intercom system on there as well. So you can actually add those in. It just makes it a lot easier on putting the system together. From there, instead of going through a website, adding on the different bits, you can use the Intercom Designer tool to put together your actual intercom solution for the system itself on there. If I switch over to my other screen, let's drag this across. So for the actual configuration of your different units, it's done through the IVMS 4200 software. So you can see I've got our different units added in. So I've got our TwoWire system added in with the actual audio distributor connected to our network. So I can actually network in and edit the parameters on here. So if we go into our indoor station and just click on our settings cog there, we can then get into the configuration of the system itself. The time parameters, this is something that we do get asked quite a lot, is the call forward time. So if you want the intercom door station to call through to hit connect at the same time as it does on the indoor station, you'd have this set to 0. But for some systems, you may want it to be where it will ring the indoor station for 10 seconds, for example, and then call through to the hit connect app, which you can actually set through the time parameters section through IVMS 4200. The permission passwords is where you can actually set your door unlock code. So if you're using one of the keypads within the actual intercom itself, you can actually set a different unlock code for your user through the indoor station. So each indoor station can have its own unlock code where you type in the room number and then the actual unlock code that's been set for that person. And you can also create a duress code as well. So if someone enters in the duress code, you can have that trigger an alarm through to Hike Central or IVMS 4200, the concierge, that someone's under duress and being forced to put to unlock the door. So you can set that duress code through there as well. We've also got our different volume controls for the system and our network settings as well within there. Depending on the system that you're using, it might be on a managed network, in which case you'd have specific IP addresses that you'd need to configure for the intercoms in order to be able to use them on that network. A lot of the times, the easiest way to check is to ping an IP address, especially if it's on a home network, is to ping an IP address using command prompt on your PC, such as this, and typing in ping, then the IP address that you want to give to the intercom, and you can then see if there's anything already using that IP address. So you can see there's nothing on the 200.210 IP address, so we could assign the intercom to that IP address on there. It's always best to use static IP addressing with the intercoms and also the CCTV systems as well. We've also got SIP server configuration. So this is if you want to tie into a third-party VoIP phone system. Now, there are specific VoIP systems that are compatible and have been tested with the 𝐂𝐸𝐕 intercoms. And what I'll do when I send the slides out after this webinar, I'll also attach our SIP intercom information as well, which will give you the different manufacturers that are compatible with the intercom units calling through to a VoIP phone system through there, which I'll send through. If we go into one of our modular IP units, go into configuration. This is running on the newer SIP 2.0 firmwares, so the actual configuration is a bit different. It's not using the remote configuration system through IVMS. It's similar to a web front end configuration for the actual system itself. If we go into our network settings, this is where we would then configure the IP addressing if we want to change it after we've activated it through SADP. Well, if we go into our intercom section, this is where we do the bulk of the configuration for the units itself. So we can configure the buttons to call. So the main unit would be the actual camera module itself. There is a stainless steel model that has the call button blocked off on the camera module, but this would be a main unit, and you can actually set which indoor station number that calls. If we have a sub-module connected with the multiple name tags, we can then set each of the individual buttons, what number they need to call, and also the time schedule. So there's different schedules that we can configure for the different buttons. So if you don't want it to call through between specific times within the system itself, you can actually set that using your intercom schedules for the system. You can see there we've got our different modules added on. So we've got our keypad module, our card reader module, and also the display module. The display module would need the names setting up through the IVMS 4200 software in the access control section, similar to how you would create a person for access control. It'd be similar for the intercom units as well within there. If we go into device management, this is where you'd actually add the indoor station to your door station that you want to call through to. So if we edit this one, you can see we've added it as an indoor station. You then need to put in your SIP passwords that you've configured through the remote configuration of the indoor station itself, as well as the registration password, serial number, and the details, so whether or not what room number it is, what floor number, as well as the IP address information on there. Now, it can take a while for it to actually add on to the system. It can take up to 10 minutes when you actually add the indoor station to the door station for it to become online and working. You can refresh at the top just to synchronize the units. If it takes longer than 10 minutes, then that may be where there is an issue with the configuration that's been done. But it's just to be patient when you first add them in to the system itself. It can take a while for them to register using the new security protocols for the actual intercoms themselves. We go back into our configuration and go into our schedules. This is where we can configure our own calling plans, so whether or not we want the calls to go through to a center, which would be your VMS platforms such as IVMS or HIC Central, or whether or not you want it to call through to the indoor station. So it might be that you don't want any calls to come through until 8 o'clock in the morning and the last call at 10 o'clock at night, but we can go in here and just do a bit of fine adjustment on there. So the calls will actually only come through between 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. And we can actually copy that to all of our days on there. And we can actually apply that template to individual buttons dependent on the residents' requirements for the actual calls themselves. Because the residents may want to be able to accept calls at different times from each other, but you can actually configure that through there on the actual call schedules for that. If we go into access control, this is where we can set our public passwords for the door station itself. So where you can actually enter in a password to be able to put in on the actual keypad to be able to then ring through on there. So put 234323. 23. I can save that, and then that will then set the public password that I've configured on there, and you can actually have up to 16 public passwords. So as mentioned earlier, we do have a custom firmware available that will allow for public password 1 to 8 to open door 1 when that password's entered, and then from 9 to 16 to unlock relay 2 on the actual door station as well. So you can have that flexibility of the codes opening the two doors separately that are wired to the door station itself. We can go in and set our door parameters. So dependent on the actual door contact that we're using, we can set the actual lock action time, so how long it will remain unlocked for after the door has been opened, depending on what's needed for the site. And we can configure our elevator control as well through this configuration on the system. And we can also enable card encryption as well. So if you're using cards to unlock through the door station using the card readers, we can enable encryption on those cards to make them more secure as well on the system itself for that. If we go back to device management, we can go onto the configuration for the unit we've got added. So you can see this is our indoor station, the 9310 unit. We can go in and see the different settings on there and set the room number if we needed to change that, or we can go into maintenance and actually reboot it from the door station itself. If I close this window and then go into the configuration for our Android unit, updates. So if we go into our intercom section within here, we still have our different time parameters that we can edit on the system itself and our network settings as well within here. There's another option that I do want to show as well within the system is if we go into access control, we have an option for notice. So as long as you've got the units added to IVMS 4200, the concierge or the security on site can actually send out notifications to all the different indoor stations that are added to the intercom system. So if we go to add, we can then select who we want this to go to, which has just gone off onto my other screen. So I'm just going to select myself. So that's added me in. I can enter in a subject. So it's just going to be webinar notification. You can select the different types of system that you want in, so it can be advertising information, property information, or just a general notice, and you can actually send that out. We can also upload a picture as well to the system to be able to send that out. And you can then put in the details of the notification, and then we can hit send, and that will then send out to our indoor stations that we've got added into the system. So it makes it nice and easy for concierge or any admin teams to be able to send out notifications to the multiple indoor stations that are added to the actual site itself within that. What I do also want to show you is on our YouTube channel now, we have started uploading a lot of the technical videos that our tech team have done that actually cover the different configurations for intercoms, NVRs, DVRs, all this small little videos covering specific areas. So configuring the intercom SIP1 permission passwords via IVMS, configuring the name tag modules via IVMS. So if we just play this one here, I'll just mute that there. So this takes you through as a nice little walkthrough showing how to set the name tag modules by the IVMS 4200 software within this. So in the submodule configuration, you can see we've got our name tag module showing us online, and we then go into the press button call, and it will then allow us to set the different numbers for the actual intercoms that indoor stations that we want to call. We can configure that through IVMS 4200. But our technical team put together all these different videos showing each of the different aspects of the configuration side of things to make it a lot easier for installers to be able to go through to help out when you're on site going through. We do have full-length videos as well for SIP 2.0 that covers all of the configuration of the system. And our video of the actual Android indoor station itself has now been uploaded as well to our YouTube channel, which an automatic email goes out after the webinar with all of our YouTube links on as well. So that was just a quick overview of the updated intercom range and how you can put together some of the different functions and features with the actual intercoms themselves. If you have any questions, if you put them in the Q&A section, and I'll take a look at those now. If you are leaving the webinar now, when you close the webinar out, you'll be redirected to a feedback page. I'd be happy to hear any feedback that you've got there, good or bad. It helps us to improve our webinars for yourselves, our customers. And there's also my contact details on screen there if you have any questions, or you can email pre-sales@dynamic-cctv.com as well for any pre-sales technical questions that you have. So I'll just take a look at Q&As now. So Nigel has asked, could I download the 𝐂𝐸𝐫𝐸𝐸 app onto the Android indoor station? So there is a file size limit that you can actually upload per application to the Android indoor station, and the file size for the 𝐂𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 app is too large to be uploaded to the indoor station at the moment, but that is something that we have been looking at with the 𝐂𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 teams to try and get a way to be able to add that on there, to be able to link the two systems together for those. If there's any other questions, if you could put them into the Q&A, or you can email myself on screen there, my direct contact details on screen. I think that's pretty much it all covered. So thank you for joining me today. I found the webinar useful, and as always, look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, which will be actually a joint one with Hikvision, covering the AX Pro alarm system. There's a joint webinar which will be at the beginning of next month, which will be being advertised over the next couple of weeks. So I hope to see you on that webinar. But thank you and take care, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you, bye.